Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Nice to see you all coming in. Reporting on the weather. The weather here is quite grey in East London. Yeah, maybe a little rainy today, I think. I was out yesterday evening doing some singing in nature and didn't get to bed quite as early as I usually do when I'm doing Sangha Live. So I'm feeling a little bleary, if I'm completely honest. But I'm very happy to be here. Just not as much sleep as I would have liked. My name is Milla, and I'm supporting Sangha Live meditations this week. Here we are at Thursday. And I work with people in charities or activists, organizations trying to disrupt harmful systems or to reduce the suffering that happens as a result of harmful systems. And I do a little bit of this kind of Dharma sharing as well. And I see the two things as really interlinked, and I'm very interested, and I find it very rewarding to think about and look at these links and how the practice on and off the cushion, the practices of transformation on and off the cushion kind of ask each other questions and feed each other and interact with each other, I guess, in my life and in the lives of others. So those kinds of themes tend to come up when I'm sharing. And it also feels really good to be here in support of your practice as part of that picture. Just going to check the chat just in case. Always wondering about sound, but think I'm okay. The messages on that. For this week, I've been talking about comfort and discomfort in practice and in life. So I'll say a few words about that, then we'll have a sit. Maybe a bit more of a guided sit this time. It's been largely silent so far this week, but maybe a bit more guided. And then afterwards, there'll be time for reflections and questions. And I might also ask for some suggestions while I'm talking, like we did yesterday, of how you've kind of met the questions that I'm exploring. I found that really rewarding, and I think that worked well. So I might invite that again, no pressure though. So I'm here to kind of hold the shared space for the shared practice, and I invite you to use as much or as little of what I say as feels useful to you. And if it doesn't land, or if, one person's meditation guidance and ideas kind of support your practice better than others, that's totally fine and totally normal, and you're not doing anything wrong. So this week, it's been about comfort and discomfort, and I just wanted to say up top that I'm using the word discomfort quite deliberately as a kind of subset of, I guess, feelings that we might want to avoid instinctively. And I'm not really using it as a synonym for pain. There were some questions that came up yesterday that were about pain, which of course is related, and we can feel discomfort around pain. But I also think pain is quite something that maybe I would say different things about pain, I think, if I was talking about it. So I'm talking about like a feeling of edginess or awkwardness, probably more often felt in a kind of psychological way. I mean, in an embodied way, but more of a sense of a kind of emotional awkwardness or sense of something being a bit wrong. That's what I mean by discomfort, as opposed to strong pain. And I've been chatting this week about the idea that discomfort can be very, very useful. It can tell us useful, interesting things about our experience, like maybe something bad is happening and we need to be worried about that, or maybe something interesting and difficult is happening and we need to be ready. So it's a useful source of information about our response to the world. And it's not necessarily a good guide if we let it steer the ship. Like if we give it the car keys and say, okay, you drive, we can end up like veering off the path at any kind of speed bump. And we can end up in some undesirable places. So my invitation is to think about discomfort as something rather neutral. Maybe good things can come wrapped up in it as well as bad things. And then we can, when we recognize it, we can learn to greet it with contact, curiosity, and care, as we spoke about yesterday, knowing that we don't necessarily understand what's causing it. Like it could be something we want to avoid, or it could be something we really have cause to value. Could be the an idea that is, if we take it seriously, will make us change our mind or our frame of reference, or it could be deepening intimacy with another person, or a need to have a difficult conversation with somebody who matters. There's lots of things that are very useful and constructive that come wrapped up with discomfort. So a kind of facility with discomfort can be a real Jedi skill. And so we've been talking about what those kind of skills are. And I've divided them into two families or two baskets. One set of skills is focused on taking care of discomfort when it arises. We spoke about that a little bit yesterday. And we talked about the idea of meeting it with contact, curiosity, and care. We talked about not shooting the second arrow and making it worse with kind of being outraged at the fact that there is discomfort, or other kind of ego-based kind of responses to the sensation of discomfort. Yeah, we went through a few of those, and I asked you to put some suggestions in the chat. And today, I'd like to talk about the other basket of skills that I believe are really helpful when learning to be like a discomfort Jedi. And these include more the other side. These include useful forms of comfort. So in a way, building up our stores of nourishment and our groundedness such that should discomfort arise, it's just a small part of a much bigger picture. And therefore, maybe it doesn't like knock us at all, because it's just, okay, that's something that's happening, but there's also all of this kind of rich, grounded, nourished kind of foundation that it's coming into. So maybe it doesn't knock us at all. Or maybe it does knock us. Maybe it is really strong. But because we've got this strong foundation, we kind of come back with ease, I guess. We can be uncomfortable and be like, oh, but then we can come back with ease. I'm using this idea in my head of like a weeble, like a wobble toy, with like a lot of weight in its base. So maybe it doesn't knock too easily, but if it does knock, it's like, oh, well, that was a knock. And then we're back. And this idea of adding weight to the base, grounding, nourishing practices, which provide a foundation to give us that groundedness. And I'd love to invite you to put any suggestions in the chat of what it is that nourishes you. I'll talk about, a few ideas from the Dharma, but I'd love to hear and see what it is for you. So please, if you would like to contribute, feel free to put in some examples of things that nourish you, things that fill up your bowl, things that make you feel grounded and whole and kind of able to work with life, nourished, well nourished. And before I go on to talk about that, I'll just say one more thing about a way to respond to discomfort when it arises, which somebody mentioned in the chat yesterday, that they had done during the meditation, which is to use hands. And there's obviously a million ways you can do this, but like if you have a discomfort, like I have a bit of discomfort in my neck, placing a hand can be very kind of beautiful. Like there's a literal expression of warmth and care. So that could be on the area of discomfort. You can also place a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly. Again, it's like a literal act of care. Even if you don't feel like doing it, like your body knows, your body can sense the care that's being taken. So I invite you to try that if you like, just for a moment. And then another one, which is maybe a little bit less traditional or classic, is to place if you're finding yourself in discomfort, or maybe you've made a mistake and there's something bad and like this cringy happening that you're not enjoying, rather than beating yourself up and it must be better, to place a hand on your heart and just be like, oh, what a silly, oh. So I also invite you to do that, placing a hand on your heart, imagining maybe an uncomfortable moment where maybe you messed up a bit, like we all do, just being like, oh. As if or that part of you is an innocent, young part that's just trying to get things done, but somehow is a bit clumsy, which is probably true. Oh. Anyway, a few different ways of using the hands to find comfort or to build up nourishment. All right, I'm going to look at the chat now, which I could see was going pretty quick. What have we got? We've got some good ones. I'm not going to read them out. I'm just going to have a little look through. Singing and humming a lot. Swimming in the sea, garden. Sang alive itself, fantastic. Teaching mindfulness, there we go. Not personal, not permanent, not perfect, yeah. And then Catherine says, the teacher once suggested a good start to the day was remembering moments that someone had been kind. Or that you had been kind. Walking. Connecting with people despite being an introvert. I hear you. Animals. Wonderful. Thank you. I have a lot of those as well. For me, it's kind of being in nature, spending time with friends, sleep, when I get enough sleep, good food, meditation practice, creative practice. And I'm also very introverted, so lots of unstructured solo time. These are like ways I nourish myself and can comfort myself, almost like ahead of discomfort, allow it, being pretty sure that it's going to come along at some point, but making sure that I have a good foundation in my day or in my life. All right, feel free to keep them coming, very worthwhile and nourishing kind of for one another. And I'll say a few more words about potential like sources in the Dharma for this kind of nourishment. Classically, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And even that phrase, taking refuge, it's like the ultimate statement of wishing for comfort, support, resource, and protection. The idea of a refuge is like all of these things. So for me, in the Buddha, we find like a teacher, like, the source teacher or one of the source teachers of these kinds of practices. And then also an example like Buddha, like that awakeness, that being awake is possible, like naming the quality that we wish to develop. And in the Dharma, the teachings, the path, the way, we find teachings and ideas that can be really helpful, like some of the ones that you were sharing in the chat. Ideas of being interconnected, that things aren't personal, that there is kindness. So we find these ideas that can be very nourishing and comforting. I find that an incredibly useful foundation. I really like playing with ideas, and I find that so nourishing. And then also the path. Dharma can also mean kind of the path of the way, and it's a path of practice. And having a path, like the Noble Eightfold Path, can be a source of reassurance, like it, almost in more of a kind of faith-based way. Like, well, I can place my faith in this path and follow it. I have confidence. And then in the Sangha, like the Sangha that we have here today, we have communities that can uphold us, can keep us accountable, can keep us aspirational, and also can be a source of shared humanity and compassion and wisdom. And the Buddha once said that having wise friends, or in the Pali, Kalyana wise friends, is the whole of the spiritual path. So it's very central in the teachings. And I love thinking about the Sangha as being kind of across space. So this wall-less Dharma hall is a great example of that. The Sangha being across space. I imagine all of us kind of connected with these like lines of light, and also back and forwards in time. So back to ancestors of all different types, back through teaching networks, our teachers, teachers, their teachers, all the way back to the Buddha and back to the Buddha's teachers. And of course, all of the people who don't get named or who didn't write things down, but who also were supporting and teaching those people who then did write things down, so that we know who they are. And all of their supporters and peers and families and people who, enabled them to live and practice. Like all of those can be thought of as our Sangha, because they all have been practitioners in this shared life. And so I imagine this vast Sangha that's here and now, across space, but also back in time, and then also forward in time. Everyone who may be able to partake of the teachings because of the way we are keeping them alive. So we can think of ancestors, and I suppose descendants, in some different categories. There might be family and caregiving ancestors, in the Plum Village tradition called blood ancestors, but I'm calling family and caregiving. Then spiritual ancestors or wisdom ancestors. Then land ancestors, the people who made like the infrastructure and the place where we live that worth living in. And I also think of ideas ancestors, which includes, my teachers and the Buddha, but like goes beyond that as well to other thinkers and writers. So yeah, I love this idea of the vast Dharma hall, the vast Sangha across the earth and back and forward in time. So I wonder if we can practice with that a little bit. Thinking about ancestors, thinking about our own foundations. . . 。 . 。 . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . So feel free to make yourself ready for meditation now, whether you're sitting or standing or lying down or moving or whatever way you're practicing today. Feel free to take a minute to make yourself comfortable. Nothing wrong with being comfortable. You might like to take any movements or stretches. Any shakes, slightly deeper breaths than usual, any ways that help you to settle. And finding a way to be in your embodied experience that is both grounded and upright and open. Again, in whichever form you've chosen to place your body. A sense of being rooted and also rising up. And checking in with the different parts of your physical experience. Seeing how your body is today, almost like you're doing a kind of tour and just checking in, seeing what the answer is. How are things today? What's happening? All these different interconnected parts we have. Almost, I think our body can be like a sangha. Checking in with each part. And if there are any areas of strong discomfort or, edging into pain, placing a hand with a sense of connection and kindness, maybe even a sense of, oh, just soothing, caring, allowing the warmth from your hands to penetrate that area of your body. Seeing if any more softness can be invited, maybe even just 5% softer or 5% less tension in any areas that might benefit from that. And then connecting with an aspect of your physical experience that you could use as an anchor for your meditation practice today, whether that's breathing or the warmth of your hands, sound, or the more open kind of field of perception of your body, whichever you're choosing today. Settling down and making contact with the immediate experience. Practice like this for a little while, and then I'll invite some ancestors. Any time in a discursive mind or storytelling mind, planning mind, ruminating mind arises, say, okay, thanks. Thanks for your suggestions, and return to your anchor sensation or immediate experience. And come back to those minds later. Now, if you like, turning your attention to the idea of ancestors. With the intention of making some connection and also offering appreciation and gratitude. Maybe we'll start with wisdom ancestors and teachers. So bringing to mind those wisdom sources that have been important for you, maybe naming them, and offering thanks and appreciation for what they've brought to your life. Thank you to my teachers and my teachers' teachers. The ones I know about, the ones I don't know about. Going back in time and across in space. And all their peers and supporters and friends and family who made their practice possible. Thanking and appreciating this vast network that has made our practice possible. And including, if you like, the dark teachers, those who have shown you how not to be. Which can also be quite helpful sometimes. And then moving on to the family and caregiving ancestors, those who made your life possible by caring for you when you were small and caring for you now. Those who literally created your body from their bodies, and their ancestors, going back. Vast network all the way back in time to the pre-human, even to the pre-mammal. Your direct ancestors, millions and millions of years ago. Elements of whose DNA is in your cells today. Great grandparent may only have had a few cells themselves. And thinking about ancestors like this includes a lot of beings in our family and in our caregiving networks. Again, back and forward in time and across in all directions in space, as well as our more direct family and caregivers that we know personally, or we knew personally, offering them appreciation and gratitude for enabling our lives. And maybe thinking about going forward as well, the descendants, our family and caregiving descendants, who will continue our lives in different ways. Seeing ourselves as part of this vast, interconnected network. And then turning attention to our land ancestors, the people and maybe the organizations or institutions built our house, laid our electricity and sewage pipes, built the roads, made the laws, created the organizations that keep us safe and take care of us. created the culture, the art, the music that makes our lives richer. Everyone whose work creates our world enables us to get food, to buy the things we need. Some of their labor has been willing. Some of their labor may not have been willing. We know some of them, most of them we will never know. And yet their work, their contributions make our life possible, our practice possible. Offering appreciation and gratitude to our land ancestors. Acknowledging at the same time there are light and dark land ancestors, and it's not that everything is perfect or even good, and yet our lives are made possible by these things, by these people, by this work. And then finally, ideas ancestors, including the Buddha. Maybe there are other philosophers, thinkers, writers, social theorists, people who for you are important in the way that you understand the world and yourself. People who, because they shared their ideas, your mind is different. People who made the climbing frames through which we can explore, expand, open up, become wiser. Become excited and full of wonder. Understand things differently. Feel at the same time grounded and rising up. Our ideas ancestors and all their ideas ancestors. Back and forward in time and across space. resting into this interconnected, interwoven set of networks, inviting, if it's available, the physical sensations of being held in this way. Through appreciation and gratitude and acknowledgement of our amazing good fortune and privilege to have all this support. And to be part of support for others. Feeling in to whatever sense of groundedness, rootedness, connection, and being held that might arise for you. Where is it in the body? What does it feel like? If you like, for the last few minutes of our meditation, connecting with that sensation in your body as your anchor. Welcome back. So couple of words about Dana as we're in this transition. Of course, Sangha Live is part of this beautiful web of support, and please donate if you feel able and willing. I'm going to find the link now. Here we go. There's the donate button. And yeah, it would be lovely and important also for Sangha Live and for me to receive any sort of financial support you can offer. And because people sometimes ask, I'm also putting my information in. I offer one-to-one sessions if that's of interest. So there's a link for you there. And please feel free to share any reflections or questions. I can see there's already a couple of things. Not just for me, but for each other, because part of supporting one another can be part of being in Sangha, can be like sharing what it's like to be in Sangha and in practice. And not very many people sometimes we can really talk to about the intricacies of practice and our experiences. So this is a valuable opportunity, if you want to use it that way, to share even just a little bit, to hear from others even a bit about what that was like, what happened for you, how things showed up for you. And before I look at questions, one more thing I would really like to say, which is that I'm going to be teaching again on Sangha Live in a few months. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think I want to talk about the suttas, about the Pali Canon, the texts on which a lot of practice and thinking in the sort of, I guess you could call it contemporary Vipassana movement is based. I'm quite fascinated by that, and I'm going to be exploring it some more, just even for myself. And so I'd be interested to know, like, what is interesting for you about that, and what might your questions be about suttas, or what you're like, where you've learned, or what you've learned about suttas. I don't know. Anything you'd like to say that would help guide me as I prepare. Again, no pressure, but you can put it in the chat, or you can write to me afterwards, because that's what I've been thinking about quite a bit. So someone has said, I think, it's hard to remember these in the heat of the moment. I can't ever roll back before some kind of regretful behavior happens. I'm not 100% sure what you're referring to. These things, was that what Catherine said about kind moments? Maybe, I wonder if you could remind me, if you would like. I'm looking back at some other things as well. What's the source of comfort? Someone has put potatoes. Could definitely relate to that. Ellie says, these were the cushions. Oh my lord. I don't know what you mean. Please explain if you can. I'm sorry. In the meantime, Caroline says, I felt a physical sense of safety contemplating so many ancestors. I was particularly touched by the humility of remembering the land ancestors. Feels like a safety net. Feels so different from a sense of loneliness. Wow. It's a very beautiful practice. It is adapted from Plum Village practice. They call it touching the earth. So I might talk about a bit tomorrow, actually, the idea of touching the earth. And there's a whole kind of like script that goes along with it, and a set of bows and so on, and you work with these 3 groups of ancestors, and I found it profoundly moving to be part of. And then there's other ways of approaching it as well. There's a really wonderful teacher called Lama Rod Owens. And he talks about, I'm not going to remember the phrase now, but it's the rememberings, or I can't remember, but I think he has 7 groups of people or things or other creatures or the earth that you can call in, and imagine he does a kind of visualization where you imagine them kind of standing around you. So if you're interested, I'll also share this with my note on Friday, but this is his name, Lama Rod Owens. He's doing a retreat in the UK in October that I'll be going on. He's a really wonderful teacher. So yeah, if you're interested in the ancestor stuff, then the Plum Village practice of touching the earth and Lama Rod Owens' 7 rememberings or 7 contemplations, something like that. And I know what you mean about that physical sense of safety. What happened for me when I was contemplating these interconnected like nets was I got a sense of grounding in my hands. I don't know how else to explain it. My hands felt like really heavy and grounded, like in a good way. Maybe it's because we were talking about hands a bit before. Okay. I'm going to try and talk to Ellie's question, even though I still don't know what it refers to, as it were, because I can't remember what I was saying. Can't ever roll back before some kind of regretful behavior happens. So I'm going to attempt to respond, but it might be a bit weird because I'm not 100% sure. But I would just encourage the it's a good opportunity actually to be comfortable with discomfort. So if you're remembering something good or casting your mind onto something that's resourcing, but then there's a regretful behavior, just try the practice to kind of include the regretful behavior, but not like fuss about it. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I regret that. And these good things, and the nourishing things, or the kindnesses. Like, it's okay to have regretful behavior. Like, everyone does. Yeah. Yes, nourishing things like potatoes are not for the heat of the moment. 100%. These are the nourishing things that build the kind of base of the Weeble. Yeah, it's no good hurling potatoes when you're actually in the moment of maximum awkwardness. Yeah, separate tactics, I would say. Yeah, I'll stop trying because I think I'm not really addressing what you're asking about. So we have a minute left. Feel free to zing a question in there if you like. Otherwise, we can wait quietly together. And I don't see any kind of sutta related things. I don't know if that's because that's not very interesting, or it just might take a little while to think about. But if you're coming back tomorrow, or if you want to get in touch with me separately, I'm really open to your thoughts as I kind of think about what I might talk about. So I wish you a wonderful day, or a good day, whatever's coming. And I look forward to seeing you perhaps tomorrow.